Hi, I'm Hazel. You've made it to Saturday, which makes it time for us to sit down and catch up on the WoW news of the week, what I've been up to, and answer some of your questions. This week was the great auction house throttling of 2020, so if you missed it, Blizzard introduced some changes in kind of like a sneak attack this week to throttle the speed of the auction house for people that are power using it, essentially. So the gist of it from the initial statement is there will be a budget of auction house actions for each player within a given but unclear time frame. And after that has been exceeded, there will be slower performance for that user. So kind of like how if you had exceeded your data cap, an internet service provider might throttle your speed. Similar to that, but for auction house use based on actions. So that went into play earlier this week, and then it was updated recently to significantly relax that budget on everything except for canceling auctions. So going in hard on players who are doing big cancel scans, which is basically trade skill master users, without slowing down most people that just want to post a bunch of stuff and then walk away. So the thing that really jumped out at me from this statement, they said the players who generate all of the auction house traffic are using add-on driven automation to gain a competitive economic advantage over other players, in addition to the increasing strain on the game service. Neither of these things is good for the game as a whole. So that is the first time that I have seen them specifically make a statement against effectively trade skill master use. The logic of exactly why they consider add-on driven auction house use to be harmful to the game was not made clear, and I can't quite follow the logic, to be honest with you. I can see that obviously, a power user that is completely controlling markets on the server could impact the experiences of other players on that server. Maybe, power users that are being very competitive in fields like, flasks and potions and enchants and stuff like that are making it difficult for the everyday player that just wants to craft them and post them on the auction house to get any sales. It's a pretty controversial thing to do because this effectively just shuts down the top end of the gold making community, because without cancel scanning, people that are trying to maximize their profits aren't really going to be able to do that. The new auction house works on a last in first out system, meaning whoever posted most recently will get more sales, meaning that if you are not canceling your auctions en masse and relisting them, you are unlikely to get those sales within a post range. So maybe the logic is that when nobody is doing cancel scans because they take forever, then everybody can sell like a medium amount of stuff all the time. Maybe that's what they're hoping for. It's going to be interesting to see if that actually works, because they're not banning Trade Skill Master. They're not saying that these add-ons are against the terms of service. They're just like slowing them down a lot to try to hope to annoy people out of auction house power use. So this is probably, on average, a good change for the majority of WoW players, especially the silent majority that is not super active on social media. Because if it really does speed up the auction house, in addition to taking out the super high competition portion of the market, that's probably good news for your everyday WoW players, and having better performance from the auction house on average for most people is also a good quality of life change, assuming that this is the best way for them to do that. That's why I think they did it, because it is arguably a good change for most people. It's just a very specific decision, it's a decision that they made to sacrifice the top end of the gold making user base, the gold power users. There are many people that played the game specifically because the economy is fun to them, and this will break that for a lot of people. And that's, Blizzard is essentially here saying that's a price they're willing to pay, is to effectively turn off that portion of the game for the people that enjoyed it to try to give a better benefit to the game as a whole. So I'm not here to say if they were right or wrong to do that. Obviously, I'm a TSM user, and I've made a lot of gold using TSM, so it does kind of negatively impact me, although I do understand why they did it. I will say, though, that making that decision to greatly inconvenience the top end and most vocal part of their player base in order to potentially smooth things out for the middle pack is something that people will remember, and people will expect them to continue to apply that logic, because you're not allowed to make nuanced decisions when you're a company. You do one thing once, and then you must do it that way every time, or else you're a hypocrite, in the public eye anyways. So the thing that brings up for me is that a lot of these arguments that you can make against add-on driven auction house automation being detrimental for most people, You can apply a lot of that logic to multi-boxers. Multi-boxers are also a very small percentage of the community, and they arguably have a negative effect for a lot of people they encounter. They can negatively impact economies, they can have negative impacts in world PvP, and Blizzard has continued to kind of like quietly allow that for a long, long time. So if you get rid of TSM but continue to allow multi-boxing, there's going to be a lot of people that see that and then assume that the only reason Blizzard continues to allow multi-boxing is because those people pay extra sub fees. Because one of the main arguments for not banning multi-boxing is that, well, we've allowed it so far, so many people play the game like this, and that's the only way they play. And you can say the exact same thing about auction house power users. So they've made choices here, and in the public eye, they're going to have to live with them. Other things this week, Blizzard has officially published the corruption rotation, so you can now plan for exactly when a specific corruption is going to appear on the mother vendor. I basically just took note of when the ones that I wanted were going to be and then set reminders in my phone. I appreciate the transparency on this so that people can plan for when they're going to purchase things thereafter. I don't necessarily agree that this is a better solution than just putting them all on the vendor at once. I suppose that makes for a very many-paged vendor. I would have been okay with that, but either way, this is fine. In the Shadowlands alpha this week, there has been a brand new build that's been data mined, of course, and in it we have some delightful new hairstyles. I will link my favorite Wowhead posts of Night Elf and Draenei customizations down below for you, but here are a couple of the hairstyles that I was just like floored by when I first saw them. I can't wait, they're so good. And before I do questions, I want to clarify a common thing that came up when we talked about Druid customizations in the barbershop on Alpha last week. The backstory, if you missed that one, being that in Shadowlands you will be able to change your Druid forms independently of your humanoid farm at character creation or at the barbershop. I would like to clarify that does not mean you will be able to change your Druid form to like a different race's Druid form. That is not what this is. You will not see any Night Elves wandering around with the Zandalari Druid dinosaur form or the Horde troll, cat form. That's not the thing. It's just that you're going to be able to select your individual forms, change your cat color differently from your bear color, differently from your humanoid hair color at a barbershop. That's all that it is. Another question that came up is to whether or not you will be able to use artifact appearances for different animal forms outside of their given specs. Like if you are a Resto Druid spec, but you wanted to make your bear form appear like an artifact bear. I don't know that one. It's just a really good question. Then as soon as we get character copy on Alpha, I am going to check that out. So no word on that yet, at least not from me. Maybe somebody knows. And questions from this week. Eric asks, hey Hazel, what do you think should be the next base race heritage armor? I've heard some unsettling whispers that Blizzard isn't doing more heritage armor sets. So I have not heard those whispers myself. I suppose it's just been a little bit since we've had heritage armor, and with Shadowlands it's easy to imagine that we're probably not getting a new base race heritage armor for a while, but I highly doubt they're just done with them. I think it's really surprising that we don't have orc or human heritage armor so far. Do we? Did we get orc? I don't think so, but now I'm second guessing myself. Just given that those two races are so visually central to the Warcraft brand, I am surprised there's no orc or human. And the other one I'll toss in there is Night Elves. I was sure that Night Elves were going to get their own heritage armor along with the Invasion of Darkshore content in BFA, and it just never happened. And I'm still waiting. And Nisbet asks, if you could design your ideal covenant, what would it be? And what would be the characteristics that would get you sent there by the Arbiter? So I thought about this because we already have 4 different very clear archetypes of covenants with personality traits that get you sent there. So I couldn't really think at first of what the gap is. What is the missing covenant in Covenant Zone? And then I figure what I really want is a rest-based covenant. And it's for people that just worked really hard and didn't take enough breaks in their life. I don't care if they worked on morally good things or not, but just people that really gave it their all and worked a few too many weekends and didn't take enough naps. I want them to have a rest-based covenant where the covenant armor is just the softest, most comfortable, matching pajamas, and the zone is just like a matrix of different beds. You've got treehouse beds and hammocks and canopies and, circular beds and square beds and platform beds and bunk beds and most delightful pillows and soothing cool breezes, and every side of the pillow is a little cool, and just like a rest-based covenant for people that just don't want it anymore in the afterlife, because all of the Shadowlands covenants, they don't You know, what if some people want to take a break? I guess you can kind of chill out in Ardenweld a little bit, but like, you know, maybe all some people want from the afterlife is just a really good nap. And that has been the week. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you have a question that you would like to be answered on a news video, please leave it in the comments of the most recent one. Stop by a stream sometime if you like, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.